Today, y'all gonna be shocked. Today, the whole lesson revolves around two verses. Usually I have a bunch. Just didn't work out that way this time. We got two verses, and I'm going to read them to start with, and I want y'all to think about them all the way through this lesson. Then at the end of the lesson, we're going to talk a little bit more about them. But we're going to talk about Genesis 45, 4 and 5. And Joseph said unto his brethren, Come near to me, I pray you. And they come near. And he said, I am Joseph your brother, whom you sold unto Egypt. Now therefore be not grieved nor angry with yourself, that ye sold me hither, for God did send me before you to preserve life. Today we're going to talk about how we want our story told. How do we want to present our story? How do we want to live our life? Do we want others dictating our story, or the headlines of our story, or do we want to claim what it is that we're after? A few weeks ago, sometime around the 1st of January, me and Tammy started back training to run again and shed a little weight. And I started this thing. It was strictly just something that hit me that I was going to do. And I told Tammy after a few weeks of it, I said, I'm going to teach on that. And Tammy like, how are you going to use that to teach on? Well, what it is I done was, I wasn't going to write down my weight loss. I wasn't going to get into that because my main objective was to get back into long distance running. I love running, and I would still be running today, but I got hurt pretty bad in 2017, and before they could figure out exactly what caused it, I had been down a year or two, and you know what happens when you get out of the routine. And so, but my goal was to get back into long distance running. It wasn't so much the weight. Tammy's like, oh, you need to write it down anyway. That way you can track some progress, you know. Well, I decided, well, I'm going to do it. I am going to write it down. But I'm only going to write down the days that I beat my best. So I started out at 160. So the days that I was lower than 160, I'd write it down. Well, whatever that was, say 159. I wouldn't write nothing else down till I had a day that was below 159. And then I just continued on down through there. And if you'll, I'm going to show you my messed up list. But if you'll look right here, it's a short list. But I've lost 13 pounds. But it's a short list. But there's a bunch of days. There's a few days wrote down. But if you look on the calendar, that's a bunch of days time span. But if you look at this list at a glance, there's only good reports every day. Tammy's like, why do you do it that way? I said, because when I look at my list, all I see is positives. I don't worry about the bad days. That's just sort of like when you ask for forgiveness, the Lord forgets it. I think that's a habit He wants us to pick up. When Tammy looks at her list, anybody ever tried to lose weight, you know that it's not always losses. There's ups and downs. That's part of losing weight. Your body just don't work like you want it to work. It don't matter if you're a man or a woman or whatever. You're going to have days that you go up a pound or two. But Tammy writes down all her days. And what the thing I hear coming out of the bathroom every morning when she looks at her paper, I say, you down? Which is a big mistake. She compares her weight loss to the day before instead of the best day. Me, you asked me. Somebody hollered at me. I'm in there weighing. You asked me, you down? I'm not down, but I've had a good week. I can tell you that about every 4 days I set another record. I don't know what I do in between because I don't write it down. I know it's not down below my record, but it may still be down from where I started. You see what I'm saying? But I know that the up days has nothing to do with my down days. Because all it does is distract the goal that I have, which is to get way on down and to run longer distances. So I started the habit of doing that. So when I look at my list, all I see is positive. Now, is life positive every day? No. But that don't mean we have to linger on it, right? And that's going to be the biggest topic of today, is not letting Satan write your story. It'd be real easy for Satan to write my story if I wrote down the good and bad days. I can see the title now. It'd be like CNN and Fox. It would say, Pastor Gary struggling losing weight. Even though there may only be 5 days that I didn't lose and 20 that I did. But if Satan's writing your story, he's going to make it all about the days that I didn't win. Got it? If I'm writing a story is, my title is going to be Pastor Gary's come a long way since day one, headed towards his goal. He's winning. Joe asked me what to title this message. I said, I want to put winning, but I don't want it to be conflicted with politics, because this has nothing to do with politics. And so I said, you just name it. Whatever the Lord leads you, name it. But I wanted it to be related to winning, but in the winning kind of way that keeps us on our goal. I have a goal, and my goal is for them numbers to keep falling. I can't help it if I have those bad days, and I don't want to be reminded, because I don't want to lose my focus. Lord gave me 3 things I wrote down this week. Several things, but 3 things I want to go over. We only write down things that we want to remember. We only read things that we want to read. And we only go places that we want to go. What does all that mean? I have a goal. I didn't really write down the goal, but in my weight loss, I'm only writing down things that I want to see that moving me towards my goal. I only want to read things that are a positive influence that gets me there. I don't need no dead weight. You ever hear people talk about in a company, you need to get rid of your dead weight because they're going to bring everybody else down? That's the kind of stuff we're trying to get rid of here. And I only want to go towards my goal. But I got to want to do it bad enough to go there. It means I got to get out. I told you a while ago that we don't get out of the house and go eat much. So for us to go Chick-fil-A and eat chicken, that's a pretty good thing for us. We just soon be at the house watching a movie eating. You know what I'm saying? So for us to go, we had to want to go do it pretty bad. And we love Chick-fil-A chicken. So we went and done it because we wanted to. I told Tammy, when I told her I was going to teach on this, Friday or Saturday, I was researching different topics I had in mind about teaching on this, and I do this a lot. I typed in that a few phrases that I thought related to what I wanted to teach on. And I told Tammy, I said, I don't think I have ever taught or preached a message that 500 other people hadn't preached already. And so I found in doing that, I researched, and I thought, I want to see what other people, other ministers, and other people that knows more about the Bible than I do, what they think about it. And so I pulled up several different versions of what I wanted to teach on today. And that's where we come up with the Joseph story, and that's where a lot of the rest of what I'm fixing to talk about comes from. And it talks about how Satan could have rewrote Joseph's story to have had a different meaning. But Joseph knew in whom he served and how that the Lord guides our steps. And we're going to talk about that as we go. The devil's all the time thinking, what can he put in our mind to deter our goals? How can he title our story? The Lord decides our story. Good things and bad things going to happen. We've studied lessons in here about good people having bad things to happen. The Lord guides our story. But it's how we handle the things that the Lord puts in front of us will determine how our future goes, right? If we allow Satan to guide that, like I said a while ago about my story, if I let Satan decide the title of my story, it would be doom and gloom. You know what I'm saying? It would be nothing but bad. Pretty much like all news media today in this world. Rarely is it good. I don't care which side of the fence it's on. Rarely is it good. It's always bad. That's why me and my wife don't have any news channels in our house. If I want to know something about going on in the world, I turn on Facebook, somebody will tell me about it. I'll get opinion from a couple of people, but I don't sit there and watch that mess all day. I don't care if it's Fox. I don't care if it's Newsmax. I don't care if it's CNN. I don't care who it is. I just don't watch that garbage no more. And so, because I refuse to let the media tell me how people that I live with are. You know, there are rude and ugly people in this world, but I've not met very many of them, and I got a lot of friends on the other side of the aisle. Great friends. We're just different. But we don't hate each other. That's what I'm saying. Don't let Satan decide how we're going to be. Don't let him title our life story. When Satan is dealing with somebody and try to bring somebody down, he's pretty mean and mischievous because he uses the person to bring themselves down. You ever notice that? Usually, as Christians, we're trying to, or just even as Christians, he'll use us to bring ourselves down. I got out of church, I don't know how many years ago it was, because several years ago, we were at Fife Church of God. I had been a leader at Sylvania Church of God. We went to Fife. Life was good. Serving the Lord. Had a great church. It was only the second church we'd ever been to, but we left the church mainly because of me. I was searching for something that I wasn't finding. But Satan got me. Not from some bad addiction or anything I was doing wrong. It was the imperfected me that was tracking all of my good and bad days together that allowed Satan to step in and say, there is no way you are going to make it. There's no way you are going to make it. I got to the point that Satan had me so messed up in my head that I thought that Gary Hartline had to be perfect day in and day out, even though I strive to do that now. But Satan had got me to the point that I had to be perfect in every way and every day and every year, or I wasn't going to make it. So if I wasn't going to be perfect in every way on every day of every year, why even try? So I let Satan headline my story, and then what happened? He used me to get me where he wanted me, which was out, giving up. You see what I'm saying? I'm living proof of what I'm teaching. Satan runs around trying to find people and who all he can mess with, and he tells them, hey, maybe I can tell them they were abused. and they're worthless. And I can tell them that they have learning disabilities, even though they may only just not be good at one thing, but they may be great at other things. Satan will tell people that nobody loves them. Here, I've got a fake love for you, and a lot of times that's drugs. And even though these people are surrounded by a lot of people we love, or that love them, you ever notice that? You just usually the people that get caught up in addiction, it's people you think, how did that happen? How in the world did that happen? And it's because they just slipped up. And it don't take a lot. Living proof. It don't take a lot, but once Satan gets his foot in the door and starts editing your story and making the headlines so that you'll click on the headlines that he has for you, which is the bad parts of your life, it don't take much to get you clicked. It's like clickbait on social media. Once you click it, you're hooked. Then you got to read all of it, figure out how to get out of it. And that's what happened to me. I had to figure out how to get out of it. Thankfully, I had a lot of good friends that did not let me go and worked with me in ways that weren't as obvious. Looking back now, I can see they were pretty obvious, but at the time, it didn't dawn on me what they were doing. They were fighting for me, thank the Lord. And they used a trick out of the devil's bag. They used myself against me to get me back. The same way that Satan used myself against me to get me out. I had at the time a big desire. I loved deer hunting at the time. I don't deer hunt anymore. I like to watch them. But I got invited to go on a big deer hunting trip. And just ironically, some of my pastor friends were there and some of my church buddies were there. And, the rest is history. But they pulled a playbook that worked to get me out and used it to get me back. Thank the Lord. But you can see in my life how it works both ways. The devil will tell people that their dad was a bad person, so how can they be good? They will tell them that you're going to have problems your whole life, and that this one little problem is just the start of things. It's amazing how people can have such a great life. You ever notice people that had really good jobs, really nice homes, really great life? A lot of those people are the ones that fall for addiction or depression. I can tell you that all those things don't make you a happy person. I've been there too. And if anything, those people, myself included, are more vulnerable because they trust no one. Find a successful business person, and I'll show you somebody that has trust issues. Me and Tammy built a company from scratch. We were in the sock business. Sock business got shipped overseas. But thanks to Wormy, or Angie Bryan now, gave us a good recommendation. Hey, y'all need to get in the party business. Nobody does that anymore. We jump in the party business so that we have something to fall back on when the sock business dies. And I'm not saying all this bragging. I'm just telling you why business people don't trust people. I've told parts of this story before. We built a business from one or two inflatable to probably 30-ish when we retire in 2020 to doing, we started doing an event a weekend, birthday party, one-piece birthday party event, to doing 15, 16 a weekend with 6 or 8 pieces at each event, sometimes 10. When our business was booming at its best and when things were really going great, financially, business standpoint, that side of life, We had a place on the lake. We had our dream home in Rainsville. Everybody that could drive in our family had new cars. A I'm just going to say a Christian friend of ours betrayed inside knowledge of our business and started their own. You wonder why business people don't trust people. This person I trusted my life with. When you lose that kind of trust, it's hard to win people like me back. But Satan used this man's. I had no fault in this person until this time. Satan used that one thing to put a divide. We're good. We're talking. I asked him to forgive me for my thoughts. And to my knowledge, I talk to him when I see him. Things good on my end. Don't know about his end. On my end, it's good. I've got past it. I'm telling you the story so you know. That one instance rocked my world and nearly destroyed my life. One instance. Not the sum of the whole. I've known this boy and his brother. Me and his brother used to work together. One of my best friends still to the day. We've crawled in ditches together, pulled people out of wrecked cars. We've done a lot together. We've seen a lot of things that I can't get out from up here together. We've done that together. But Satan used that one thing to nearly ruin me. Because I put too much emphasis on things that I shouldn't have been, and I fell. What is it? Hook, line, and sinker. And I let him write the story for a while. Now I use that story to show how even Pastor Gary has to fight through some of those things, and I have to overcome some of those things. Got a little ahead of myself. In the story of Joseph, we learn a little bit. We learn that you don't get to control your story, but you do get to control your headlines. You don't get to select the script of your story. Joseph didn't have no control over what happened. He was just there. He couldn't control it. He wouldn't have chosen to be thrown into the pit by his brothers when he was 17. He wouldn't have chosen to be falsely accused of rape and thrown into prison. Yet all these things happened beyond his control. But they were not defining. Just like I said about my friend that I felt like that done me and Tammy wrong. What happened to him was a lot bigger deal than what happened to me. But Joseph still would not let that define him. He knew who he served. The one who writes the story is not the one who chooses the headlines. Life's going to put some stuff in your story you wished you could change, and some stuff in your story you didn't choose. Some stuff you did, but most of it you don't. Yet Joseph, with the rape charge, false imprisonment, near death at the hands of his brothers, at the end of it all, as he was publishing the proclamation of what his life had been all about, he stopped to look at everything that he had been through and seen all those events that happened to him, and he could have used those events to shape it in a different way. But he talks about this when we read it. But he says, he talked. Well, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. You meant it for evil. If you were writing my story, you would have had me as a slave, but I'm not a slave. That's how Satan would have wrote the story. If you were writing my story, you would have had me as an arrogant 17-year-old who didn't know any better and that should keep his dream to himself. But Joseph didn't want to be known like that. If you were writing my story and if life were writing my story, I would be a victim. But I refuse to let what happened to me when I was 17 be the headlines of my life when I am 30. Joseph decided to take his life and put the truth in the headlines rather than let all the things that the world seen as bad, and they were bad things, but it was nothing he could control. But he can control the response. He can control the response. Joseph was not going to allow the bad things in his life to be the headlines. A lot of things happened to him, but there's a big difference between what happens to me and the response. Basically, is what Joseph said. If I don't know how many people has written books. I've never wrote a book, but I've studied a little bit about writing books. There's one thing. You have an editor. You come up with a story, you get an editor, the editor edits things. But there's one thing the editor can't do, and that's to make the story, right? And the story usually dictates the headline. And usually the author has a lot to do with what the headline is. But the editor, as much as they want to change the story, they can't change the story. All they can do is edit and rewrite it, but it's got to keep the same story. But if, as an author, you allow the editor to change the story, then that's on you. The only way the editor can change that story is if the author allows it. It's talked about some here in this lesson that this guy used. I'm going to skip over a little bit because I want to go a little bit further past that and I'm going to run out of time. When we read the two verses we read a while ago, a lot of things is said in those two verses. It says, "And Joseph said unto his brethren, Come near me, I pray you. And they came near, and he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom ye sold unto Egypt." That says a lot right there. "Now therefore be not grieved nor angry with yourself that ye sold me hither. For God did send me before you to preserve life." Y'all thought about that a little bit as we went along. How many different ways do y'all think that those two scriptures could be written? We know the story about Joseph. We know everything he went through. And basically a lot of what we know about Joseph is those stories and what he went on to become. But if somebody wasn't as deep into reading the Word and studying the Word and serving the Lord, how easy would it be if you only had those two verses for Satan to put a title up there? How easy would it to believe, say for instance, if somebody said, let's just make up a title here. Joseph sold to the Egyptians as a slave. Satan put that on there. You're a slave, and got Joseph to believing you're just a slave boy. You can never be nothing. Nobody wanted you. Even your own family sold you out. Can you see where that would could have been put in people, non-believers that don't read a whole lot. Can you see where that would be turning the tide a little bit and how they look at Joseph? Joseph, because if with a headline like that, what would you think? If somebody nowadays had somebody start saying something about somebody, let's just use Pastor Cates. Can you imagine if a local newspaper, say that had it out for Pastor Cates, that each front page, Rainsville Community Church, led by a man known to do drugs and drink. That title. A lot of things in there is true because Pastor Cates told the world he had a drug problem, drinking problem, but the Lord delivered him. They're making it sound like he's doing that now. They're making that part of his life now. And that's not his life now, right? Pastor Cates took a hold of his story before anybody could do something like that, and he told the world his story, but he added the truth to the end of it. What's the truth? He was delivered by God of drugs and alcohol. Right? That's a whole different story than what could have been written. And just like with Joseph, whole different. They could have, if Satan had got a hold of that story, people, non-believers, would have never wanted to read anything more about Joseph. Why read about him? He was a nobody. He really nothing there. They wouldn't have found out about all the great things he done. Right? He'd been in it, just like Pastor Cates. If somebody put that real bad headline, but instead Pastor Cates put the truth out front. He put the part that the Lord delivered him out front. What did he deliver him from? Drugs and alcohol. He made the highlight of his story about being delivered and about being rescued and about giving his heart to the Lord, about serving a king that can deliver you from all of this, right? He put the truth out in front rather than doing like I did when we were at Five Church of God, letting the Lord bring down off one or two things I might have done. I don't even know what I didn't even do anything. I wasn't even involved in anything. But, we mess up every now and then. We say stuff and don't mean it. But rather than me grabbing Satan by the throat, like Pastor Cates done, he took all the things that Satan could have used against him, but he told the good side of that. He told the side about being pulled out of the pit of drugs and alcohol and all the bad things he done by a God who cares. He changed the outlook, and then his destination to serve the Lord and this beautiful church and the big beautiful life center. You see what come out of that. But had Pastor Cates tried to hide his past, can you see where that could have turned bad really, really quick? It could have turned bad really, really quick. And innocently. I mean, not many, if you consider the church is not a business, but if you consider the church a business, not many CEOs want people knowing about their past. But when you serve a king, he wants everybody to know pretty much your life story. Y'all know my whole life story. I tell you all the time right here. Even if Tammy wants me to or not, I do. That way I ain't got to worry about it. They can't nobody blackmail me. Y'all know it all. And that's just the way, to me, that's freeing. But that's me writing my story. I'm not going to let happen what happened to me. And this has nothing to do with Five Church of God. I'm not going to let what happened to me happen again if I can help it. And I tell my kids this all the time. When they mess up and they get tore up and they calling me and mom crying about something, shake it off. There's another day. I think, and I pondered on this and prayed about it and thought about it a whole lot. We read where the Lord forget when we ask for forgiveness, it's forgotten. If we're going to be Christ-like and serve the Lord, have we not got to pick up those habits of forgetting? I'm guilty. I talked to y'all about my regret with my relationship with my mom, and I can't change that now. She's gone. I talked about how regret ain't, I used to say regret's a life sentence. It ain't a life sentence. I'm learning. The Lord's getting me through that, and I've got good Christian friends that's walking me through that, and we're getting through it. But we got in all the work that we do, if we're a teacher, a Sunday school teacher, if we're a pastor, if we travel the globe doing mission work, none of that matters if we can't control what's coming out. The White House has media teams. Why? They control what's going out. They can't control what's going around, but they can control what's going out. That's what we got to do. We got to control the story. So all the facts out there. We got to write our very own title. So if we could title those scriptures again, this writer here that wrote this said, when he starts talking about the verses, he said, is it, he was talking about these two verses. He said, is it you sold me, or is it God sent me? Which is the best title? God sent me. Satan would have used you sold me. Why would they use you sold me? Because that makes you worthless as a human being. But God sent me makes you a servant of the king with a future. You sold me, you have no future. You're a slave for life. But God sent me, the king sent me. I'm taken care of from now on. And it's just what? 3 words in each title. But it makes a tremendous amount of difference. A tremendous amount of difference. I know my weight loss thing is funny to y'all. But every day when I get up and I get ready for my day and I weigh in and I can go over there and write down another number, that's exciting. It would be disappointing to me to go over there and write down a number that wasn't getting me one step closer to my goal. I was going to make up little note cards for everybody to take home this week and to only write down your blessings and the things that got you closer to your goals this week. But I didn't make the cards, but I wish you all would do that this week. This week, our goal is to make it to heaven. That's our goal. We may have personal business goals and retirement goals, but our goal is to take us and our family and friends to heaven, be with the Lord. That's our goal. And we're going to mess up along the way. But this week, just stop and start writing down everything that you done or everything you was able to achieve to get to that goal. Don't write down your mess ups. There's no need of dwelling on that. If it's something bad, ask the Lord to forgive you and go on. But what I'm saying is, let's not dwell on that. Let's move forward. Every day, I know in this room of people, I don't know everybody in here, but I'm pretty sure most people in here could write down something every day. If not, a book every day that puts you to that. Do you know why that's important? Just like my weight loss. I've been hurt. I haven't been able to run this week. The hardest part about running is not running. If you're a runner at heart, I love to run. If you're a runner at heart, the hardest part about running is not running. Because that gets you closer to your goal. That's what I want y'all to see this lesson to be. The hardest part about logging the good days is not logging. See what I'm saying? Because to me, that means I'm not closer. I only want to log when I'm closer and closer and closer. I don't know if any of this made sense. I tried. I pulled from several things. My life story is all I can give you. I can give you Joseph because his story was better than mine because he didn't allow Satan to write his. I allowed Satan to write mine for a while. The only way I know to teach and preach, and I think that's the only reason the Lord called me to do this, is because I have a story. There's not very many things in life that I'm going to teach about up here that I've not lived. And that's when most of y'all, about everybody in this room, or if not everybody, would have a story to about every lesson. And Tammy wished sometimes I wouldn't tell all my stories, but that's part of it. To me, it makes it real. I'm not happy that I have stories about everything that I do, but I am happy if the things I have come through helps you guys to get through something. And the same with y'all. I know stuff about some of y'all. Pastor Kate. Pastor Kate changed my life because his life. In Uganda, I got to learn a whole lot about Pastor Kate's life. Because we're just sitting in a Land Cruiser traveling across dirty, dusty roads with potholes the size of cars. And all we have to do is to talk and pray. But Pastor Kate's life, even though he would probably like to edit some of that out of his book, made me a different person. Changed my life after that one trip with Pastor Kate. Get to go back with him this winter. First time we've got to go together in a while. But I just can't wait. I learn something every time I go, no matter who I'm with. But think about this week and see if this can impact you in any way. And like I said, there's my January, February. Not many days, but I am ecstatic. 147.2 is the lowest number. That's real good from 160. Ain't no negatives in there. Alright. Love you guys. I hope you got something out of it. I'll be back in a couple weeks. Maybe I'll have something. I'm praying that the Lord send me something totally amazing. Love you guys.